Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. So I'm sitting here just reading this article, National Review, Censoring the Censors, where the Trump administration last week announced increasing vetting for applicants of H-1B visas for highly skilled workers, with an internal State Department memo saying that anyone involved in censoring of free speech should be considered for rejection. Well, that means anybody from Great Britain now, right?
Pretty much. Well, I was going to say the rest of the world, really.
Canada,
right?
I mean, it's like it's when it comes to wanting to censor, and
right.
And so on that article, I actually got a few listeners who wrote me who remember that in the past, when it comes to Christmas time, I've talked about one of my secret pleasures was always watching the original Waltons, The Homecoming.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The original one.
Yeah, the movie.
The CBS made-for-TV movie back from 1971, which I remember as a 15-year-old kid watching.
Yeah.
And it had a big impact on me. You know, John Boy hiding his writing under the bed and what is he doing up there?
Right.
What is a 15-year-old in his bedroom with the door locked? Yeah. Which made the imagination go of this young 15-year-old a boy going, what is he doing up there? And she said, smoking cigarettes. And I went, nah, that's not it, because you'd smell it.
Yeah.
And so she goes up there, and he's basically, he's writing. He's writing, and he's embarrassed. These are his secret thoughts and everything else. And I remember that helped. I remember as a 15-year-old, I went, and remember, we grew up with Depression-era parents.
Right. Yeah.
So that movie, as much as the Waltons, because as I got older and got into college, I remember the Walton series used to be on.
Yeah.
That went that my sisters would be sitting on the couch with my mom every single day that it was on, and then it went to Little House on the Prairie when I got into college, and every week there was another disaster. Locust, starvation, blindness, and I remember coming in from college real quick to shower and dress up and then go to my club DJ job. And they're all crying in there because of the latest. But my point is, and I don't think I've ever watched a full Waltons after, the original one.
Right.
With Patricia Neal. But a couple of listeners said, Gary, they've censored The Homecoming.
What? Did they edit something out?
They edited something out.
What?
Do you remember when they're in the barn and John and you have Mary Ellen asking John Boy if he ever dated, and said basically she doesn't have the figure she doesn't have the figure to be beautiful. And he's milking the cow at the time, and he looks up and says to her, he said, don't worry, because she's worried, she's entering that time when the body's going to change. And he said, don't worry, they'll grow. And she says, what? And he goes, your bosoms. They censored that out.
That's what they edited out?
They edited that out.
Oh.
Now, I haven't seen it, but that's a couple of listeners that know that remember you saying that was your secret pleasure. And that was MeTV, apparently, and these are the only two people apparently on the planet from the messages that I got that was watching the Waltons on MeTV instead of the Bills game that had national exposure.
Could be.
Everybody on the planet, I swear, has, Gary, your Bills.
Well,
and I didn't see it.
Let's look at this as a glass half full kind of thing.
Yes.
And since he was milking a cow with milk.
The symbolism I know is.
Is it better that they edited for that reason as opposed to, well, she made a comment and it made it seem like he was about to fat shame her? The liberal side of, we can't have fat shaming because, he's comparing her to a cow. clearly the writers were implying she was a cow.
I don't think that was even on their radar way back then in 71.
No. Fat shaming. If you
right.
would have gone, this is what no. This is what we got to do. I mean, there are plenty of really great things, good things that you could do if you had a time machine, right?
Mm-hmm.
They talk about it, and go back, make sure that, Hitler was never born or things, things. Those are great things, too. But if you've got the time machine and it's working, there are other things you could do. Like you could go back to that time, just when, not the time that was depicted in the Waltons, but the time that that movie was being written, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was only several decades ago, a few decades ago, it's 6 decades ago. So it's not that long ago, but you're going to go back and you're going to just say, hey, listen, no fat shaming in the script. And just look around the writing room and see what they do. You're going to have to go back and talk about all of the liberal stuff. Go back 50, 60 years and talk about all the liberal stuff and see what kind of look you get out of people. That's what I would just love, just curious all day long to see how people would react. The movie was written when? The 60s maybe? 70s?
Well, I
don't know how long. When was it? It was based on a book, wasn't it?
I believe it's that and I can't think of the name of it. The one of Henry Fonda. That or
on
Earl
Golden Pond.
No. The one I just can't think of it right now. Very quickly.
But if you could go back, if you had the Wayback Machine and you could go back at will, and just
Spencer's Mountain.
Oh, yeah.
The Walton. Both of those were Earl Hamner. Who wrote
right.
and they said the Waltons actually comes from the whole Spencer Mountain thing I've read in the past.
Yeah, so that goes back a ways.
Yeah, and they're different movies, but they're different movies, but the writing was still great in both of them, and very relatable, especially if you came as we did from Depression era parents.
Oh, there was everything because everything was there was emphasis put on everybody's responsibility. Having such a huge family. Then everybody took on a responsibility. I know with my mom, there were 5 children. In our family, there were 5 children. But with my dad, there were, I think it was either 4 or 5. I got to go back and count. But there, there was this, you had to do something to earn, everything. Everybody in the family worked and had a responsibility to some level, starting at an early age. There was those, and at the end of the night, you said goodbye before everyone turned their lights out. Apparently, to the Waltons, that's good night,
John Boy.
I was waiting for Ralph in the series. I was waiting for Ralph Waite, the dad who played the dad, to say, "Would you knock it off, all of you, every night? You don't have to do this every night. I have a belt. I will come upstairs." No, it's
Well, when I first got the emails, they said they've censored the Waltons.
Yeah,
the original.
Yeah,
and I had heard that it was on because it was being publicized that they were playing it on Sunday. So I'd heard that it was going to be on.
Yeah,
but when they said they've censored, what I'm thinking of, did they censor? Papa's Recipe. Remember Papa's Recipe? And I went, oh, man, no, wait a minute. Maybe they censored. I thought it was religious censoring. Maybe it was, Cleavon Little who went from the Waltons
to Blazing Saddles.
But he was great in both. I mean, he was just superb in both. But Cleavon Little as the, he would be delivering the Mama's Recipe. Remember, though, he was the minister of the black church that John Boy went into. And I went, oh, did they edit? I thought they maybe edited, the birth of Christ monologue that he did in there.
Right.
And it wasn't. It was like, oh, my gosh. And I will say this. the audience was laughing. They were like, MeTV, why did they censor it? What was that meeting? What was that meeting like inside when for 50, almost 55 years, that movie has played without that scene being edited?
Well, okay, but it's the real estate too. MeTV.
Yeah.
But
it's the Waltons.
I know.
You're censoring the Waltons.
If the Waltons, here's how, they get down to every single grain of sand in the branding era of media today. If the Waltons needs to be edited, man, you're really trying to be a family-oriented media company. And they're like, did you just hear what he said?
Well, when you think about it, it's over 30 years ago that Seinfeld had the contest.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
The contest show.
Right.
Which was on masturbation.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
And Seinfeld said the censors didn't even seem to be concerned about that. What they were concerned about was how many times they were mentioning Snapple.
Oh, yeah.
That's what practice and standards were worried about.
Right,
they kept,
right.
Because remember at that point, that was the sort of thing, hey, a Snapple, have a Snapple, and they just jumped into that.
Right.
And they said, no, we think you're saying Snapple too many times. And they're like, we couldn't believe it. That was their concern with the show.
Yeah.
They never thought it would get on. But, when you think about that, that's 35, that's over 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, then you go back 55 years ago, over a half century ago, of something like the Waltons, which was considered G plus.
Right.
And 55 years, there's actually a network that says, we've got to censor the Waltons here.
Yeah.
That's just,
Well,
I would have loved to have been in that meeting. And somebody go, you're censoring the Waltons.
Well, okay, but I also have to consider whether or not, I mentioned fat shaming. It was also in the spirit of let's not get into the body shaming for adolescent women game.
Ah.
Right?
Ah, okay.
If there's a sensitivity
Right.
in the marketplace whatsoever, we'll avoid that sensitivity.
John Boy was being a misogynist.
Yes.
Because he was telling her that
he's assuming that's what she meant.
That it would be that the only acceptable way that she could handle was if her breast grew.
Right. Maybe she was talking about something else. John Boy, I would say my nose is a little too long. I don't know what you were. What? It's weird that you would bring that up. I got to go, John Boy. We're not going to be that close anymore.
But I had to answer probably 10 different listeners today. What do you think about the Bills? And you know how I learned they won? I did that. I actually had a weekend where you would think I had a life.
Yeah.
I played it for you, some of the play-by-play of my great nephew the other day.
Gosh. Beautiful.
I watched this game and actually listened to it.
Yeah.
As it was being played, and they won their first game. He's a senior now. In fact, I'll be watching him Friday. I'm flying in Thursday, coming back Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And then I had the one of the greatest bluegrass bands ever, the Petersons from Branson, Missouri.
Oh yeah.
Saw them at and by the way, it's still the Arlington Music Hall.
Mm-hmm.
The best place to see a concert ever.
Oh,
and you know why?
Mm.
They've got padded seats that rock back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
And so any band is playing, and you see, I think it fits around 800. It's got a balcony and everything. It's a real nice place.
Yeah.
And you see everybody during the music rocking back and forth, and it's great.
Rich Little was playing there one time, and I couldn't go. I was so distraught. So distraught.
Well, the thing is I've met the managers, the owners in the past. And I went, well, thank God, because, the majority of bands that I like are more smaller venues.
Yeah.
And for example, a lot of the 800 to 1,000 seat theaters are booming right now with bands from the 70s and 80s and everything else.
Right.
Well, these are all people over 60.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so many of these places, you got to stand.
Yeah.
We don't want to stand.
No, we don't.
And the aisleways are huge. You don't have to, scrunch up. People can walk right through. You know, where you can sit there and be, sprawled out a little bit. They walk right in front of you, to their seat, and everybody's rocking back and forth. Yeah. That's what I want. And then yesterday I had the movie thing, the independent mockumentary.
Shooting the movie.
Yeah, it was great. It was actually...
You were on the set.
I was on the set, yeah. I was on the set. It was really good. I mean, funny thing is, because so much of the mockumentary is they give you a basic framework, and it's ad-lib, and all the big scenes with everybody in together, and you're talking about 8, 9 people as the mob boss comes in, and we're all hugging. There were 2 different scenes, and both were one take. Yeah. And we looked and we go, yeah, I thought that was really good, but I'm not an expert. You guys are the experts. Go, no, it was great. And that's, everybody was involved in that. Now, right. And so it was a lot of fun. And we actually got free pizza because they wanted to have, the mob boss was coming in. Everybody's having a dinner. So we had pizza and everything else.
That works.
And we're, but then I got shopping and everything else. And I just got home and there were other things going on. Yeah. The vet called. Oh, my kitty cat. I hope she's going to be okay. High calcium. That could be a number of things wrong with my kitty cat. Oh. So I got into that, and then phone calls, and next thing I know, I'm getting all these messages from listeners going, "This is unbelievable. What do you think?" About what? And they assumed that I was watching, and it wasn't. So. Yeah. Yeah. But
I still don't know if did the Cowboys win on Thanksgiving Day?
No. Oh, no.
I still don't.
They didn't win Thursday.
I know the Thursday game with the Lions. They
won
lost.
Thanksgiving.
They won Thanksgiving.
Yeah, but they're really out of the play. I mean, I saw it was a 9% chance of making the playoffs. Yeah. But, so there you go.
Saying there's a chance.
So they're in the hunt.
Right.
So when I saw the censoring the censors article, it made me think of the emails. I never thought I'd get emails. Never thought I would get emails from our listeners on the censoring of the Waltons original.
Yeah. Very interesting. I do wonder what the reason was. Yeah. It could have gone either way.
Yeah. Yeah. We are Red Eye Radio.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller. Drivers must always be prepared for a roadside inspection. This means drivers should always have their personal, vehicle, and company credentials organized and ready. The top 2 violations written against drivers every year are log, general form and manner, and log not current. Both are completely avoidable if the driver keeps the log accurate, compliant, and current at all times. Having the vehicle ready for inspection involves the driver conducting daily inspections and making sure any problems that are discovered are immediately corrected. Vehicle readiness also requires the company to make sure that the vehicle is current on all scheduled maintenance and that the maintenance schedule is adequate. This will make sure the driver is being given a sound vehicle to start with. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. Coming up here in a little bit, we'll tell you about the SUNY professor who says that planes, trains, and automobiles has dangerous capitalist message.
Okay. All right. Fine.
So we'll get to that here in a little bit. Plus, it seems like more discussion on the blowing up of drug boats, but it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it's like the media wants to keep it on the surface, and it's just not staying there. And I don't think it's going to. You know, there are a number of questions and concerns about Hegseth, but I don't know that story itself is going to go very far. I think if it were, it would already right now be boiling over at the top.
And it wasn't boiling over at all.
No.
We'll get to that.
from the Uniden America Studios.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. We'll get to, again, we're in the cycle where almost every story that's been in the news is just repeating itself over and over again, and it's
Right,
like, okay,
yeah,
they don't
yeah.
have a point there. So we'll get to that in just a second, but any of the news stories up there, especially it relates to Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever, it's just they're just too good. And the College Fix had this one. Holiday classic, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles has dangerous capitalist message.
Dangerous capitalist message.
The classic Thanksgiving film, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, contains a dangerous pro-capitalist message, a State University of New York professor said Monday on a radical left podcast. SUNY Purchase College professor Matumi Gant analyzed the film on a podcast, Millennials Are Killing Capitalism. They discussed their belief that the comedy film normalizes classism through the main character's disastrous travel experiences as they attempt to go home for the holiday. The podcast, which frequently features leftist academics, describes itself as a platform for communist, anti-imperialist, black liberation movements, left libertarians, LGBTQ activists, feminists, immigration activists, and more. Gant criticized the main character, who would be Steve Martin, as a grumpy, uptight, upper-middle-class marketing executive played by Steve Martin and his family, and his family-focused goal of trying to get home for Thanksgiving.
How dare he?
He said the film uses family as an excuse for Martin and other capitalists' poor treatment of the working class, including the lower-class main character played by John Candy. If your executive boss is a little bit of a blankety blank, just know he can't see his family that much, so you shouldn't be that ticked off that he's exploiting you, possibly harassing you in various ways. It's just this stress of not seeing his family. He also attacked the idea of family and home being portrayed as wholesome.
Wow.
You get this idea that because the main character is not at home, that kind of wholesome side of him gets destroyed by modern life, not by his real, terrible capitalist ideology. I mean, this is...
Yeah. No,
I'm reading this.
I can read it. I know I could write the rest of this myself. You and I have been doing this so long. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, this is so stupid.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm wasting everybody's time at the moment. But you have to understand, how the left thinks, the far left, especially when there's a growing number of far left politicians, whether it's a Seattle mayor, whether it's Mandani, that it's happening.
Yeah.
And you have places where the far left is growing in this country. Another point at the podcast, the professor pointed out the contrast between how the two main characters are portrayed despite having similar jobs. Well, I was going to make that case. I didn't assume that John Candy didn't have any money.
No, it was difficulty traveling, finding a way, finding a seat.
Right. And he had lost his wife. We don't know why he specifically was homeless, but he was traveling. He could buy an airplane ticket.
Right.
Because he was on the airplane.
Yeah.
So I viewed him as...
He's in a situation.
He's in a situation, but I didn't view it as a lack of money because he was a salesman who seemed to be very good at it.
Right.
Otherwise, he wouldn't have been on an airplane with Steve Martin.
Right.
But then he gets to the point of saying you get the idea that the main character is not at home. He pointed out the contrast between how the two main characters are portrayed despite having similar jobs. Well, you just didn't say that the paragraph before.
Right.
One is a upper-level marketing executive who was clean, organized, and physically fit. The other one is a lower-class salesman who was sloppy, unscrupulous, and overweight.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, when it comes to sales, and I've done sales, I never viewed elite sales versus non-elite sales. jobs.
No.
Uh,
Well, it's you're creating all of these things out of nothing.
right. Well, because it wasn't about their job. It was about
The situation.
the situation and their different personalities.
It was a situation comedy movie, is
Right,
what it was.
Right. And it was about different personalities of human beings, not the perception of the job that they were doing.
Right.
It was the clash between personalities. One guy who was extremely outgoing and the other one who was not.
Right.
Now, to make the assumption that had to do only because of their job in a capitalist society, in my opinion, is a pretty big stretch.
Well, it is, because you're going out of your way to, again, to assume things, and that's what the left, far left, most often does. Not even assume things, but portray things when you don't know that to be the case. If that's your interpretation, I get it if you're on the far left. But I never saw that. I don't know of anybody who has ever made these points on that movie and that storyline.
It was almost because, when I got it, the first comment was, I don't think he actually watched the movie. This is the point they made. It talks about, Del Griffith, who was John Candy, that
Right.
the fact is he's always on the road because he didn't want to go home. He didn't want to live in the home. And that's sort of what I got. Not that he had a lack of money, because he was flying.
Yeah.
So somebody was paying something, so he could have stayed in a hotel, whatever. But I got the thing that he just missed his wife so much, he couldn't bear to stay in the home or wherever they were living before. Now, you're reading into it because that wasn't specifically said in the movie.
Right.
But that's what you got out of it. And then at the end, you saw, the incredible, the compassion that once the stress was over, Steve Martin was actually a pretty good guy because he went back and got John Candy. And think about that. I'm going to bring this guy home.
Yeah.
Well, it shows he has compassion.
Right.
And the things that he talks about, the flashback of memories when he's on the train. And you see that evolution from him under stress, not being able to get home, knowing he can get home, and then going, this guy's actually a good guy.
Right.
And then remember, one of the key things when they're walking down, and he says, look, I'll just come in for a second and say hi. And he goes, just come in.
Yeah.
Just come on in. Whatever. We're worried about that. And I did think about that afterwards. I mean, what bedroom did John Candy sleep in, and how long did he stay at the house? I mean, we never got those kind of things answered. And was Steve Martin, could he ever get rid of him?
Well, I think the sequel was Uncle Buck when he then started babysitting the kids and all that. So he stayed there for a while, apparently. Yeah, it's the left again trying to make you believe that everything has some kind of nefarious tone or meaning in a movie that's always been seen as a really sweet movie. And by the way, this idea of saying that, assuming that portraying home as a wholesome place, home and family.
Yeah,
as
exactly. Didn't like that either.
Because inevitably, what you would hear from the far left is, not everybody has a good home and a good family. Yeah, we understand that. But many people do, and it's okay to portray that in a movie. It's absolutely fine to portray. And if you want to portray something different, then write your own movie and do that movie.
Right.
They just, they can't help themselves. It's everything must be a system that creates victim after victim after victim after victim after victim after victim.
Well, and the thought process from the left that if a movie, which is a snapshot of a particular writer with a particular specific story, is not inclusive to what they view is all the tragedies of modern life, that the movie is flawed in some way.
Right.
And you and I remember when we had the comedian Steve Byrne in here, and this was when he had was it TBS?
Mm-hmm.
His TBS series, Sullivan and Son. And it was the time, actually, that you weren't here, where he was like, it was the last week of the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and he messaged me and said, "Hey, I'm going to be doing the Tonight Show. That I'm taking the red eye to Dallas. He was going to be at the Addison Comedy Club, and he said, want me to stop by?" I'm like, yeah.
Yeah,
you're on the Tonight Show. You're going to stop by afterwards? Yes, certainly. Certainly. And no, he was telling that to you too when he was.
That was in our old studio when he was talking about how they wanted him to greater represent the community with more diversity in the cast.
Right.
And you had Roy Wood Jr., Ahmed. You had Steve Byrne, the central character, which is kind of based on his reality. An Irish father and Korean mother,
and growing up in Pittsburgh,
that
kind of bar fit Pittsburgh perfectly.
Right.
And
Brian Doyle Murray is the crotchety old guy.
Yeah, I mean it was pretty funny. And so you look at it. He was like, he goes, it's as if they want to take what your story is,
yeah,
and say, well, but it's not inclusive of everybody's problems in the world.
Right. Well,
that's not the goal.
Mike, another comedian, Mike Vecchione, who's a great comedian, does a bit in his stand-up special, The Attractives, which, by the way, that special is clean comedy. He doesn't always work clean, but that one is, and it's available on YouTube for free. I highly recommend it. But he does this bit about, they asked him in Hollywood, is there something in your background, about you that would, help us out here, basically, in the storyline I'm paraphrasing. And he goes, well, I'm Italian. I'm 100% Italian. He goes, no, that won't work. That won't work. Is there anything else? Like, are you a woman? Do you feel like a woman trapped in a man's body? And he says, well, no. But there is something. Yeah. No, this is, I don't know if this actually happened or if it's just the bit, but the bit, this is how the bit goes. And he says, no, but there is something similar. I was born through C-section, so at one point I was a man trapped in a woman's body. So, which is a great line. And, but it depicts, and I would have to ask Vecchione if that actually happened. But I have to believe he's making the point through that bit for a reason. And we heard it from Steve Byrne firsthand. And it's Hollywood going out of their way. Quite frankly, they don't understand how much of the entertainment experience that they have ruined along the way. The storytelling. If you're telling a story, it's just that, a story. It's not every story.
Right.
Don't try and tell every story in one movie or one show. Don't try and depict, whatever it is, everything, and represent everything in a story. You're telling a story. That's your only job, to tell a story.
To tell a story that will keep people interested.
Right.
So they watch it. So
and don't include the word bosoms.
So people then watch. By the way, I remember as a kid going, bosom. This was going back to the Walton thing. Bosoms. And I went, Oh, wait a minute. That was in the 1930s.
Oh, yeah.
Because nobody was using that term in 1971 when that was on. But
not out loud, anyway. Yeah.
We'll censor that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I just I found that article. It's don't believe, and there was an article talking about the mainstream media. Look, they're not going away. They may not be as powerful as they are, but they're not going away.
Oh, they're not.
They're not.
They're winning elections.
Right. The far left is not going away.
They're controlling big major cities and states.
Yeah. So we are Red Eye Radio.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. Just one little other ditty that I noticed over the weekend, and conservatives on social media pounded it. It was a New York Times article about how Biden ignored warnings and lost America's faith in immigration. The Democratic president and his top advisors rejected recommendations that could have eased the border crisis that helped return Donald Trump to the White House. No,
it wasn't ignoring anything.
They weren't ignoring anything.
They did it.
They caused it. They wanted it.
he campaigned on it.
I know.
He fulfilled a campaign promise.
And that gets back to, look, the mainstream media isn't going to go away. They're going to try to justify things that you can't justify that are, again, self-evident.
Right.
It's self-evident. Everybody knows Biden and the Democrats wanted an open border.
Yep.
It wasn't that they couldn't handle the problem. They caused the problem.
He campaigned on it.
I know.
If you were deported during Trump's first term, come back. We want you here. Then, remember, in Del Rio at the International Bridge, what was the common thread and all the answers to the question, why are you here? They all said, because Biden told us to come back.
He invited us.
Yes.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Well, I mean, it was during the Sunday morning news shows, a lot of talk about the whole drug boat situation. Really nothing new. Remember, this basically comes from that false story.
Right.
It comes from a false story in the Washington Post.
Right.
That made allegations that weren't true.
Right.
And it's really interesting that you can basically write a story that's so full of lies that even when the lies are picked off one by one, there's still attempt to make it a controversy.
This is what the left has learned.
Right.
The left has learned that the truth doesn't matter, and the reason the truth doesn't matter is because they'll keep it alive. They'll keep the agenda part of it alive anyway, regardless of what the truth, and there are very few exceptions to this, regardless of how it's been disproven. And it's fully been disproven, the Washington Post story, but it doesn't matter. The thing lives on. Now, it hasn't boiled over, as we mentioned earlier, hasn't boiled over the way this story, the way that it would if there were something more to it. But it's still alive.
And I think the key point of it, and we talked about this when you were gone last week, that, what are they actually looking at? Why are the senators? Because the White House has kept Congress abreast as to what they're doing. Mm-hmm. They're getting classified. That it's not like they just did this and didn't give. They haven't publicly talked about it as much, and the legal justification for it. And even in the article that we read last week on the air from a gentleman, I forgot the organization that he was with, that said, look, here's what's going on here. Here's what makes it legal. And he said these drug boats, whether they contain fentanyl or whether they contain cocaine, are a part of the Venezuelan government.
Right.
All right. So this is, that's how you get to the point of narco-terrorism.
Yeah.
And when you see them saying, well, are you going to shoot every drug addict? It's not about every drug addict, every drug dealer. That's not the point. It misses the point. The point is those drug boats are the end game of the Venezuelan government, which is involved in drug trafficking and taking that money in drug trafficking. This is the allegation made from the other side. Again, remember, so much of it's classified information that the senators and Congress people have been told. But they're taking that money, and that money is going to certain terrorist groups that are enemies of the United States.
Right.
That's what justifies it.
Right.
Whether it's Hamas, Hezbollah, I forgot the other Central American terrorist group. So I'm doing this off. I don't have the article in front of me right now. Mm-hmm. And they're going, that's what justifies it. Mm-hmm. So if you're talking about, for example, Al-Qaeda's moving cash or moving drugs in the Middle East, we can go after them. We've done it. Mm-hmm. When you think about it, because when you think about when we hit the nuclear plants, now the United States wasn't. I don't know how much I'm assuming the United States was involved in the intelligence of taking out the scientists. Remember, they just didn't blow up the infrastructure.
Right.
They killed every scientist that they could find, every nuclear scientist in Iran that was a part of it. Now, technically, it was Israel who did it, but I would have to assume that so much of the intelligence came from the CIA.
Yeah.
And so you look at that, and so what that was the justification for that. Now, then they moved from that to the second shot, right? That the second shot was Hegseth saying, okay, to take the title from the Metallica album, just kill them all.
Yeah. Right.
Well, that order was never given.
Right.
And then it came that the admiral, after the first shot, actually got legal advice as to whether a second shot, is legal, just to make sure he was covering his butt. And it wasn't that they were just hanging and looking for help. It was the fact that they were attempting to signal other boats. They were attempting to save, the drugs, whatever.
That boat was scheduled to rendezvous with another boat.
Right. And the thing was, no, you destroy it now.
Right.
If you wonder, if you're looking at this and you're wondering, okay, but where does this go? The fact that members of Congress, including Democrats, have been briefed on why they did it. And then at the same time, when the whole illegal order thing came out from 5 Democrats, they could not tell you what an illegal order Trump was giving.
Right.
That was the point where I said, okay, they've been in the briefing, and they've been convinced in the briefing that if it is the fact that that drug money is going to terrorist organizations and going to, fund Hezbollah, Hamas, Central American terrorist groups, that's why the Democrats didn't come out in unison and condemn it and say that it was illegal.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. Now, again, a lot of it is speculation on our part because we are not privy to those classified hearings, but we understand politics and understand if the Democrats thought that the justification was bad, it would have been everyone in unison in the Senate and the House Democrats criticizing what Trump was doing as illegal.
Right. Yeah, that's, again, we've been doing this long enough to know which stories. This is why when a story, again, is struggling to stay at the surface, and the liberal activist media is doing this, much of what has kept it, even as present as it is the inaccurate story, the lies told in the Washington Post story. Mm-hmm. If not for that, this thing would have been over. And then you ask yourself, all right, who has the power to really elevate a situation? Well, it's on Capitol Hill. The Democrats. They would be in unison screaming. And you're not seeing that. And you have to ask yourself why. Again, the activist media wants it to be something. They start, it's almost like they've turned it into this, ethical question. Well, should we be targeting these boats, and should we be doing this? And there, by the way, is a legal question in situations like this. There are plenty of legal questions. But the point we're making is those legal questions have been answered by all accounts. And that's what you're looking for. Did they do their job to carry out these missions, make sure that these missions were carried out lawfully? And by all accounts, the answer is yes.
And the fact that you don't have Democrats in unison after coming out of these hearings, that they've been quite frequent, and this was from a week ago, then they look at it, they are looking at the evidence that they have seen and said, okay,
yeah, we've got nothing.
We don't have anything here.
Right.
We can say the strategy is wrong, maybe.
We can say, again, it's unethical to do this, or, there were survivors and they shouldn't have, Or
the strategy is, I saw this already, that this isn't going to stop the drug trade. Well, Nobody said it was, but
No.
But if you want to make those arguments, those can always be made. They've been going on, that debate back and forth with the drug wars. But the case that is believed to have been made to the Democrats and Republicans is this isn't a normal drug war. These are drugs that are being used to support terrorist groups that is being run. It's a government. It's not, for example, Mexico, where the cartel might control the government.
Right.
This is a situation where the government is a partner with the drug cartels to do this and siphon off money for anti-American terrorism.
Right.
To give to anti-American terrorism groups,
right,
international groups,
right,
that we are at war with.
Right.
And so...
And Maduro knows this is his leverage. His leverage is to, again, use whatever they can, their resources, which in this case is drugs, because they're not a major player in the oil game because they've been basically shut out. But if you look at the drug trade, well, then they know, all right, if we can do this and we can partner with terrorist groups, then we get interest to, again, keep people like Maduro in power and also keep that money flow going, which a lot of it is going directly into Maduro's pocket himself.
And that's why after the 5 Democrats came out and they go, whoa, the Democrats talking about the Venezuelan drug boats?
Right.
And they went to each and every one of them. Well, no. Well, then what is it?
Right.
Well, we're just doing it because he says things we don't like, and so he might do something that's an illegal order in the future.
Right.
And we went, sorry, you can't do that. Especially somebody like Mark Kelly.
Right.
That's reprehensible to do something like that, being that he's former Navy. But what I got out of it was they've been briefed, and they're if that's the story that they're being told, and again, we're not privy to these meetings, but the articles I've read said that's what the United States is telling. That's what the administration is telling the members of Congress and showing them this evidence, which you can probably do. That you can follow the money, I'm sure, through bank accounts and whatever whatever the CIA has to do these kind of things. If you're going to make a case to Democrats will promote any lie that the media puts out there. When the Democrats aren't saying anything where you say, well, why aren't they pounding Trump for this? Then that means that they've been convinced by some of the evidence that they've seen from the administration. There's no other reason for it because Democrats will make up outright lies. We know it. Russia collusion. The president's a traitor because he colluded with the Russians, and that was all made up by Hillary Clinton and the DNC.
This would have been a no-brainer.
Right.
You would have had AOC standing side by side with Chuck Schumer on this one.
Along with MTG.
Liz Cheney.
Liz Cheney. That's exactly. So those are some of the signs you have to look for.
Yeah.
The Democrats came out and it was like, okay, are they implying it's Venezuelan drug boats? So they were asked. Well, no, we're talking about things that might happen in the future.
Right.
All right. Well, then why aren't they using this?
This sets a dangerous precedent for what might be protocol of the future, blah, 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 blah. No, what actually happened. And again, it only gets its energy from the inaccuracies and lies told in the Washington Post story.
Yeah.
Without that, then it's nothing. And because, when you live in a delusional world and you read something like that in the Washington Post, even when it's disproven, you still wish it to be true. This is how their mind thinks. And well, it could happen. No, the only question is, did it happen?
I know that because this is the thing we don't know. So they use sources that were completely wrong. And nobody's debating that right now.
Yeah.
Because why? It was the New York Times that challenged the Washington Post on it.
Yeah.
That's where the first story came going, no, that wasn't true. No, that wasn't true.
Right.
No, that wasn't true.
Right.
Which means your sources are completely wrong. Now, I was over radio news department a long, long time ago, even though I wasn't the news director, I was the station manager, that used sources for some city stories. And my one rule was you had to have two, and two separate sources. And if you were wrong, the credibility of our news department would be destroyed.
Right.
And if that happened, you can never use those sources again.
Right.
Does a Washington Post, has anybody asked, the Washington Post news editor, news department, when your sources are wrong, do you no longer use them?
Well,
when you get burned as big as you did here, do you continue to use the same sources? Those questions are never asked, and they're legit questions for the media if you're going to use sources.
There has been so much manipulation in the entire sources game and the national media. I consider Washington Post national because they, they're huge. There's been so much manipulation in the sources game that it's hard to tell. I believe there are real sources. I also believe on the other side of that, and I can't measure which is which, and that's the problem. You can't, because they're never going to reveal their sources. You and I know the tell. When different sources to different news organizations are all saying the same thing, assuming those are different sources, and the story goes wide and wide and wide. When the New York Times is having to call out the Washington Post, you've got a problem.
We are Red Eye Radio.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
What does the winter weather outlook across the U.S. look like? USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says the Climate Prediction Center's late November forecast for the winter months indicates
La Nina is expected to rule the roost when it comes to temperature and precipitation patterns for the winter of 2025-26.
In fact, recent weather developments resemble expectations for winter conditions.
Some of these cold air masses that are building in from western and northwestern North America, punching into the northern plains and the Midwest, are very consistent with what you would expect during a La Nina winter, and that is exactly what we have seen develop over the last couple of months.
Below normal temperatures are expected for much of the nation's northern tier from December through February, while above normal temperatures should prevail in the southern half. Precipitation prognostication for this winter includes unusual wet conditions in much of the northern tier of the U.S., while the southern stretch should mostly be dry. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Sorry, but I hit the my mic button twice, and it wouldn't go on.
Yeah, well.
So, come on.
It's
go.
resisting. The resistance.
And it works.
All right. It does work.
You just drive me crazy. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
Work.
Yeah.
All right, now, one of my favorite headlines. By the way, coming up on the bottom of the hour, do the Republicans know where they're going on health care? Because here we are now, December 8th. And it's like a couple more weeks. Is there going to be a plan? What are they negotiating? What's going on? We'll talk about that coming up on the bottom of the hour. But this is my favorite headline. Rosie O'Donnell's therapist told her to ignore Trump for 2 days. She only lasted 2 hours.
Again, part of TDS, part of Trump Deranged Syndrome, means that you can't ignore it. You're obsessed with it. We may have to change the name of it. Trump Derangement and Obsession Syndrome. Right? Because they really are. Every single thing. You know, we looked at the actions of presidents we didn't vote for and didn't support because, number one, that's our job to do that. Biden, Obama, Bill Clinton. But at times also George W. Bush, and at times Donald Trump, if we disagree on the issues.
Yeah.
I don't sit and obsess about any of them. I just don't get it.
Yeah, you simply say, does this make sense? What's the truth?
Right.
And a lot of times on economics, what works in economics and what works in negotiation with foreign countries, whatever.
Yeah.
We give our opinion, but it's based on what they're saying.
On the issues and the actions and what they're saying,
right,
what
like,
they're promoting.
Like it's useless to talk about the Trump name calling.
Right, yeah.
It's what he does.
Right, yeah.
We've done with it this is more than a decade old.
Right, exactly.
Not going to obsess about it every day.
Right.
What's he talking about? What's he doing? Does it make sense? This is good.
Exactly.
Don't like this.
Right.
What it's
Right. If you don't like it, quiet, little piggy.
Catch Red Eye Radio live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I don't know really what to think about this, Eric, because when I was mentioning about Rosie O'Donnell, that her therapist the day before Thanksgiving said, you need to go. You need to go a little time here. You need to ignore Trump for 2 days, and she only lasted 2 hours. Now, obviously, she needs a therapist. When so many on the left are involved in delusions, is that why they believe they need a therapist? Because I'm always amazed. Some of the best money I've ever spent, and here's a quick example why, is not to have the commercials on YouTube.
Yeah, right.
Like, for example, over the weekend, I just had YouTube on and just put, just Christmas stuff to see what came up.
Sure, yeah.
And all of a sudden, boom, this, I can't think of the name. It's a Milwaukee jazz trio that last year did an entire concert, the Vince Guaraldi trio, all the Peanuts music from the movie.
Oh, nice.
And it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
The guy in the stand-up bass, you're just going, wow.
Yeah.
And the pianist is just wonderful. And it's really interesting how you think about it. And I saw a documentary on that show, and Charles Schultz said, no, we're doing jazz. And they got pushback. You talk about pushback. They got a ton of pushback on a Charlie Brown Christmas.
I was in the grocery store the other day because, you think of like that song, that the one, and well, they're all instrumental, but you think, except for the ones that I guess the kids sing, but the one which has really become the Peanuts theme, from that special, and I heard it in the store, and I just thought to myself, that's that arrangement. It immediately takes, those of us in a certain age group, which is actually a pretty wide range for as long as that special has been around, immediately back to that place. But it is jazz. It is.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
The piano line at the beginning. There's a bass player by the name of Stuart Ham, and he's one of the greatest ever. And he does that entire song on his bass while he's hammering the lower keys, the what would be the piano keys, and then he does the melody by hammering with his right hand. So he's playing it, and he does it kind of as a solo, and it's amazing to watch. And that's when I really learned about I guess, composition, the composition that was that song. And it's absolutely jazz, and it's brilliant.
Well, when you think about that album, and it was an album that they actually did, the Vince Guaraldi trio, when you realize that, because you and I both are into probably a lot of the stuff we listen to is harder than that. We like more hard. We like more hard rock.
Right.
And myself, a lot of prog rock, whatever. I'm always amazed how powerful and intimidating that song is with just piano, a stand-up bass, and really not loud drums.
Right.
and it's dominant. I mean, it's a powerful thing. But think about it. I was trying to think over the weekend. This is a great Vince Guaraldi True. We're a great jazz band, and this Milwaukee, I think it's the Centennialist or something like that is their name. But it's absolutely wonderful, and it's on YouTube, and it's just Peanuts, Charlie Brown, Christmas.
Yeah,
and they do all the songs that you want to hear. But when you think about it, that the jazz snobs, what? Peanuts, Charlie Brown?
Yeah.
That's where but you think about it, as soon as you hear that, you don't think of anything else but Charlie Brown, and that has gone down as one of the greatest jazz albums of all time based on a children's cartoon.
Well, think about it. It's like, going outside the church to minister, right? I mean, that's basically what you're doing. You're going outside the genre here in order to spread that and make it part of, thanks to Charles Schultz and his insistence, but also the selection of what it was going to be and who was going to be responsible for it. And that is, you take that, again, that genre. I'm always intrigued by, certain things that have, like, in my case, like a hard rock theme to them. And it's like, wow, back in the day, that wouldn't have been the case. It kind of goes outside the, mainstream, but then brings it to mainstream. And I would think jazz fans would appreciate that part of it.
Yeah, anything that gets the genre out is what your goal is. So, but that was something I saw on YouTube. But also on YouTube, I watch so many of the different podcasts that I find interesting from a lot of the Hollywood people, just talking about stuff.
Yeah.
And getting back to the Rosie O'Donnell thing here about her therapist, I'm just always shocked of all these people doing these podcasts. Well, when I went to my therapist, like, how is that a normal thing in Hollywood? Does everybody actually have, because the rate of Hollywood people, it's now this is anecdotal evidence, but it sure seems to me that I see so many of these Hollywood people that are talking about their therapists, which has to be way over the per capita of people, regular people, having a therapist.
Well, and here would be the two sides of it is, I don't know. I don't know if I can even say the virtue signaling or something, or that I've become, in the case of Rosie O'Donnell, such a victim of Donald Trump, I had to get a therapist or, something like that, because we've heard that kind of tone before. The other part of it, if you want to call it the good side of it, would be to normalize therapy in that people shouldn't feel intimidated by approaching a therapist or seeking therapy, because there are clearly very legitimate reasons to seek a therapist.
Oh, yeah.
But it is a strange phenomenon in Hollywood where they're promoting this in a way, because my thought would be, all right, dealing with something specific, right? If they break it down, there have been, like, the Osborne family has been posting some things on their social media accounts, their YouTube page and everything else, about dealing with the grief of the loss of Ozzy Osbourne, which is immense. Sharon and Ozzy were together for years, for decades, and of course his children, they all, are suffering through this, and it's something that takes a great deal of adjustment based on the fact of losing a loved one, and then beyond that, someone who was a dynamic personality and had an influence all over the world. So in that setting, if you're talking about, dealing with grief, there was the one with Anderson Cooper and Alex Van Halen. And Alex Van Halen was talking about the loss of his brother, because he wrote a book called Brothers, and basically describing the life with Eddie and the whole thing, and also Anderson Cooper also lost a brother, and that came up during the podcast. So it gets fairly emotional during that.
Well, remember, his podcast is on grief, and I do have something to say.
Yes, I was going to say you've created a place for it, right? And that I get. It's like, okay, how do you deal with? We had the longest time listener who has since passed, but her husband introduced her to the show. And Lori would write me on the regular. I would get an email at least a couple times a week. But her husband, Joe, before he passed, made buttons and sent them to us. Tell us where we're wrong. These little buttons that he made, you know, and I still have mine. I still, you know, they're very special to me because of what Lori shared after his passing and the years after his passing. But she would also often share that, you know, she's never really gotten over the loss of that. She has passed away in recent months, and it was, you know, it was very emotional for me because of what, you know, I knew she was going through. What I knew, you know, she lived in Michigan, and she said the winters are especially cold when you're alone and when I'm without Joe and all this. And so we had this correspondence over the years. And I get it, because a lot of people will tell you, like, and if there's a loss, if you experience loss, well, you know, after some time you move on. Well, life carries on, but you carry that loss with you. And each individual carries loss differently.
But in the case, and we'll get to the Anderson Cooper thing in just a moment, but to the point which is not grief we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about just everyday life that all these people, and again, I'm torn between this too, because Rosie O'Donnell, if her life is completely controlled by Trump, she does need therapy. And so I guess my question is, do they actually realize that they have such unreasonable thoughts, unreasonable reactions that, you know, to somebody like Trump, that they realize that they have to deal with their delusions or their
obsession
with it? And so actually it's justified that because Hollywood is so far left and you have to deal in delusion and emotion and drama all the time.
Because now we're dealing with anxiety instead of loss. You're dealing with anxiety in this case. And if it's accurate and true what her therapist told her, there's a reason behind that. And it is, you need to temper your obsession and learn to walk away from that.
Because
I just, giving it that kind of power is dangerous for anyone.
And again, I don't want to be judgmental, because at one point I went, might I need professional help or a sports psychologist for my golf game when I believe I have the rage of a serial killer directed at myself because I can't hit a ball with a stick?
Right. Your competitive nature had gone too far or whatever.
Well, I saw that on my own, saying, grow up.
Sure.
But, you know, with the grief thing, I've actually watched a ton of it, of the Anderson Cooper, the whole thing on grief with different people.
Yeah.
And the only thing I would have to say is, look, I don't mind the program of people dealing with grief, because that's probably the toughest thing that we have to deal with, the loss of somebody who has been close to us. But I was wondering, when I watched so many of them, how long, it's not that, as you said, you never get over it, but you have to learn to live with it in order to move on.
Becoming functional again in your life is,
it seems to me that so many of the people that he is on have not really passed at their emotional state of somebody, you know, a relative, whatever, who's been gone for decades. They still haven't, gotten over.
Right,
and I just wonder, not judging, but I wonder the psychology of it, because most people cannot afford a therapist and deal with grief all the time.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a fact.
And so the question, and these are questions, they're not final judgments. So the question would be that for so many in Hollywood, does anything that happened in their life become an accelerated drama in order to virtue signal? I care more. The grief affects me more. You know, everything in life affects me more than it would you. And so I need help with it for every single little stinking aspect of my life.
Because my approach would be, if there is something that's affecting me to that extent, whatever it might be, whether it's anxiety or grief or anything like that, and I felt compelled to bring it to the program, then I would also feel compelled to follow through with some kind of solution, either based on what a professional has told me, or bring a professional on to say, hey, these are some of the things you can do to deal with this in your life. Because I don't think it's helpful to just say you're seeing a therapist. If you're going to bring that up, then I think you have a responsibility to actually offer something to your audience and say, if you're going through this is how you might approach it, and this is where you might get help.
I like the fact I'd like to see the therapy session with Rosie afterwards. You couldn't even go 2 hours?
Yeah.
All I asked was 2 days. Go do something.
Yeah.
Go do a sport. Take a trip.
Right.
Go see 20 concerts in a row.
Right. Exactly.
Sorry, you can't. We are Red Eye Radio.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
We're Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. But I'd like to see that if you took... Now, again, the reason is they can afford a therapist where most average people can't. But I would just like to see, per capita, the number of people. If you took, like, the top 1,000 people in Hollywood right now.
Yeah.
And many have therapists, and then extrapolate it out to, say, per capita, what is it as compared to the rest of the United States?
Right. Yeah.
That'd be interesting just to see.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.